everybody, welcome back to Humans of Springford. Thank you so much for coming back around. We are having great conversations with people that are committed to the Springford area in one way or another. Today, my guest is Alex Metricarti. She is on Borough Council and is a Royersford resident. So, Alex, thank you so much for participating in Humans of Springford.
My pleasure. This should be a lot of fun.
So, as we typically get started right away, let people know your backstory a little bit, and we can talk about how ultimately that led you to where you are now.
Well, let's see. We moved into Royersford probably in 2005, 2006, something around there. I originally came from Michigan. I grew up on a farm in south central Michigan. So Royersford is actually big city living to me.
You sneak over to Renninger's farm to get a taste of home sometimes?
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I discovered, to my horror, that actually I like the smell of cows and horses, which is something that I had not really thought a lot about until I left them. So
that's funny. Better than the pollution smell, I think.
Absolutely. I think some would probably argue that that's a different type of pollution smell.
That's right.
But it's still okay. So I moved here with my husband and my two boys in 2005, 2006-ish. And we came to this area because he originally was from Devon, down on the main line.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I always joke that I had the great fortune of marrying the only poor people in Devon. So, but
better to have the most rundown house in the nicest neighborhood than the nicest house in the worst neighborhood. Right?
That's right. Well, and we've been married for 29 years, so it must be okay. But his family had moved up here to the Royersford area to get away from some of the congestion while we were out living in Michigan. So when we decided to come back this way, we thought, well, we better move close to family. Right. And so it took us like a year to find a house around here that was a house that we enjoyed.
Yeah.
So that's not the easiest thing to do.
Yeah.
Then or now. But.
Yeah, they go quickly, and it's only a handful at a time that are available. So
yeah. Well, and when we live in a twin house, and of course, I'd never heard of a twin house. You don't have twin houses on farms in the country, in Michigan.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's what we have as well. And obviously, if you're going to be in the borough, that's really one of your own. That's very much your only option in a lot of ways, in a lot of the area of the borough. So, so you're closer to family now. Obviously, did you change careers coming out here, or did you line up a job while you were out here, or how did that come to be?
I changed careers. I was selling real estate when I came out here. Yeah. And it's fun. I mean, in Michigan, when I was selling real estate in Michigan, I did that for about 4 or 5 years before I moved out here. And I sold a lot of houses in Michigan that were under $80,000 for a list price.
Yeah.
So when we came out here, it was significantly different. But I did that for a while when I was here. And then I have my background is really in marketing and sales.
Okay.
And so after a while, I decided real estate is all nights and weekends. And at some point when you've got kids, you start thinking, okay, I like the flexibility, but it would be nice to have a weekend back.
Right.
So I went back to work for my alma mater, which is Eastern University down in St. David's, Wayne area down there.
Oh, yeah, I know.
So I was doing sales with their degree completion programs.
Oh, okay.
And then after I finished my master's degree, I got a call from somebody that I knew that said that a retirement community up in Lansdale was looking for a chief marketing officer, which at that point I didn't think I'd ever been to Lansdale, and I had never set foot in a retirement community, so I had no idea what any of that was like. But I drove up to interview. It was the middle of a snowstorm. I felt very intrepid that I made it to the interview, but in Michigan you're kind of used to snow, so it's not a big deal to drive.
Yeah,
So
you
I
were
went up.
probably well more equipped than most of the people in Lansdale driving in that store. I lived in the Lansdale area, actually, not to
Did
interrupt you,
you?
but from 2006 until 2015. So I grew up in Philadelphia, moved to North Wales
Okay.
when I got married, and then we lived there, and then we moved. We stayed in the same township, Upper Gwynedd Township,
Yep.
and we switched from North Wales to Lansdale. We lived there for all combined almost 10 years, my wife and I, and then our two children. And then from Lansdale is when we had a brief holdover in East Norriton while we prepared to buy this house. We lived there for about how many months? It was like not even a year and a half. We lived in East Norriton as we were kind of, we did the take one step back to get two steps forward. So we downsized temporarily so we could prepare to buy our house ultimately in Royersford. So anyway, which retirement community are you at liberty to say?
Sure.
Okay.
So it's Living Branches is like the parent name of it. So it's Dock Woods.
Oh, Dock Woods. Yeah, I know exactly where it is.
Yep.
That's really cool.
And then Souderton Mennonite Homes in Souderton is another one of our communities. And then the Willows of Living Branches is our third community, and that is in Hatfield. Hatfield address. It's on 309. And the way I describe it to everyone is I say it's kitty corner across from the new Wawa.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
And everyone's like, oh, I know exactly where that is.
I know exactly where that is. It's like next to is it next to the retail store that sells like the garden statues and stuff like that? Is that where you're talking about? Union? Is it like near Unionville Pike or whatever that's called?
Retail store is a very generous.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I don't know what to call it. It's basically like a shack with giant statues in front of it. Yeah.
That's exactly where it is.
My wife's family lives in Easton. My brother lives in Souderton, so we're going up 309 and that area all the time, even though we've since moved to Royersford. So very familiar with those areas. So that's cool to know that you have that common thread. So what year was it that you started to work at this retirement community after real estate?
It was 2010. So it's been 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah. I know. Time flies.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. When you look back on it, it probably was like 2010 for me. When I say 2010, that doesn't seem that long ago when you say it out loud, and then you actually do the years, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. Especially, I have a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old now, and it's just like, it's crazy to look back at that because I still see them the way they are. I mean, and then I look back at a picture and I'm like, oh, no, that's actually, you were a lot smaller. Like I just picture you in my memories as being the same as you are right now. So
this year would be my 30th college reunion. So
oh, really?
If you want to feel old, wait until you get to that point.
Oh, okay. I would have, next year is my 20th high school graduation. So that'll give you my age there. So what was it like? I mean, obviously you'd done sales and you worked in the university setting, but now you're going completely in a different industry. I mean, there are obviously things that tie together when you're talking about sales, marketing, all that kind of stuff, like general principles, but you're dealing with, I guess with university, oftentimes you're dealing with families as their children are starting out their life. And then you have the retirement communities and families are preparing their elders for the latter stage of their life. So what are some of the things that you encountered as you entered into this new world that you were unfamiliar with?
Well, so where I come from in Michigan, there really are no retirement communities like this out there. So not right in our immediate area. I mean, there's not really anything like this. Now they're building the one down in Limerick, of course, which is sort of like a true CCRC. But
just for anybody who's watching, what does CCRC stand for?
Sorry, you're right. I'm using the slang already. So CCRC stands for Continuing Care Retirement Community. And so the idea behind that is that not only do you have like independent living where you go when you don't need any help, you're fine on your own, you just want it's basically like a 55 plus community. Yeah. So that's there. And then there's some kind of personal care or advanced care so that you don't need skilled nursing yet, but you just need you need assistance with meals. Maybe somebody comes and gives you your medication, that type of thing. So that's there. And then they also have skilled nursing. so that if as you get to the point where you really cannot take care of yourself at all, you still have that ability to live on that same campus with all your friends and everybody that you know. So it's very convenient. Moving from one place to another is never easy, but at least you have a plan and you know what you're doing. So where I live in Michigan, there really aren't any communities like this. So I had no idea what it was like. And there are a lot of similarities in the buying or in the decision-making process to colleges. It's a decision that you're going to make once. Mm-hmm. It is a high dollar value decision. Mm-hmm. It impacts the rest of your life. You're going for one reason, but the ancillary things are just as important. So you're moving to a CCRC to get care eventually, but you're really concerned about what's my room look like? What's the food look like? What fun things are there for me to do? What's the gym like? Am I going to like my friends? Am I going to meet new people? So all of those things are taken into consideration. So the thing that's the most different, at least for us, because Living Branches communities are faith-based communities. They come out of the Mennonite tradition. Sure. And so our residents are just the nicest people ever. So the biggest difference for me in moving to a retirement community was everybody that I deal with now is super nice. College students have a lot of angst. They're all concerned about stuff. Once you're over the age of 75 or 80, you really don't care anymore. And you just kind of like do what you want. You say what you want. It's awesome.
I always say to my wife, I'm going to make a great old man because all the stuff I've wanted to say and I had to keep mum. No one will care. I can get away with it.
It is fantastic. You say what you want and you do what you want.
Yeah. So. And they've seen it all. Like they've gone through however many different, you know, similar situations. They've seen everything across that. So nothing probably stresses them out nearly as much as
it's amazing.
Yeah.
So, the other thing that happened that was really great when I moved to retirement community living was when I was at college. When I was working in college, like I was the old lady, and when I moved to the retirement community and started working there, I was a young spring chicken again. So it's all relative.
You just change the demographic, and it's great. Like that's what you know. Find a niche, and you're the and you have the experience, but you're the youngest person there. That's always good. It's hard to be the youngest person there and not have the experience. That's when you're just like the gopher. I've had those kinds of
jobs, so. No, not a gopher. That's good to miss.
Yeah, it's that way you describe it. My grandmother actually, she's in Philadelphia Protestant home.
Oh, okay,
She's in Martins Mill in Philadelphia area, but it's the whole kind of thing, like you said, and she's actually now moved through. She's going to be 99 next month, hopefully. She's doing well. Yeah, she just found out that she kind of has to stay in her room right now because of everything that's going on. She's had several falls and different things going on in her as she gets older, and she's starting to lose her memory a little bit. But she's still. I talked to her on the phone a couple days ago, and she's still spry and like sharp with it. So, we're praying for her, obviously. But actually, I tend to hog parts of the conversation just because I'm trying to make connections between the two of us because I think that helps. And it's a selfish endeavor on my part because I get to know people that I don't normally get a chance to. So,
well, a conversation has to have two parts.
That's right. That's what I try to explain that to people. I was like the two like critical feedback things I've gotten from Discover Springford, which has not been many. It's been overwhelmingly positive, thankfully. It's a pretty innocuous show. I don't think I'm not ruffling any feathers, but they said that I talk too much, and I'm like, well, I'm having a conversation. Like, I'm sorry. Like,
that's exactly right.
It's the first time I've met these people. I got to tell them the same story that I told the other people. Sorry, it's just the kind of way it is. So, but what I was going to say is, before I started working where I work now at Sight and Sound, and I was doing a lot of just as an actor, gig after gig after gig. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I did was I worked for a company called Philly Senior Stage, and they perform specifically in retirement communities. And we do we did 2-person. It was a guy and a girl, and we would do 2-person versions of Broadway shows. So they would do like an abbreviated version. Like they would sing most of the songs. They would kind of narrate the story and then do some scenes from it. And we would do quick costume changes behind like a little room divider and stuff like that. Like it was. So I did. We did Guys and Dolls, but
Okay.
For legal reasons, it was called Luck Be a Lady because I don't think they technically had the rights to do Guys and Dolls. And probably couldn't use the term Luck Be a Lady either. But we performed at like Shannondale, and we performed at Brandywine, and we performed all over PA, New Jersey, and Delaware. So I don't know if I was at any of those, or any of the three that you were at, but
probably
in
not.
the area, Ambler, and I would imagine the Mennonites probably weren't doing too much Broadway entertainment.
Well, at Dock Woods, the opera comes in like once.
Oh, does it?
So, yeah.
Oh, there you go.
The Amici Opera comes in and performs. So
it was a great experience for me because one, I think I get along really well with. I love talking to seniors because of I just like to hear stories. I'm that kind of person, which is why I started the show. So I just love to hear the stories and the history of things and to talk to folks. So I would go and I would sing and I would do my thing, and the people were so appreciative. They just loved any form of entertainment that was brought there. It was like the best audience I've ever had. It was like I would come home and say, man, it's really good for your ego to go here because they just think everything you do is like the greatest thing. You know, it's just so amazing. So anyway, sorry, that's enough about me. Go ahead.
Well, no, it's funny that you would say that because I have a new salesperson on my team, and the person who is training her is somebody who is retiring. And so she was our previous sales counselor, and she is just that same kind of person who is as nice and kind and wonderful a person as you could hope to find. So my new salesperson is probably in her mid-30s, and she's been with us for a week now. And so I was talking to her about how it's going, and she's like, well, she said, it's great, except I don't know about Charlene, my sales counselor who's leaving. She says, she says, you guys, she's so nice. She keeps telling me how wonderful I am and what a great job I have. Every time I send an email, she comes back to me and says, oh, that was beautifully written. You did such a nice job. I was like, well, that's pretty much our audience.
That's really funny. Well, yeah, that's good. It wasn't just my experience. It was everybody's. That's good.
It is. Yeah, they're nice. So they are endlessly funny. So you talk about stories and just the interesting things that you've done. I was talking to somebody at Dock Woods not too long ago who he is a pen pal, and he has been writing the same family in France since he was there in World War II.
Whoa.
Think about that.
That's incredible. So like the different generations, or are they still alive? Oh, wow.
No, different generations.
That's
and
incredible.
So when he first started doing it, he didn't speak French. And so he had to find somebody who could translate the letters because they were all in French. Yeah. But now he's taught himself to use Google Translate.
Oh my God.
So here, he's, I don't know, 94, 95, 96 years old, and he's still faithfully sending letters back to these people. They email now.
Yeah.
But he's sending emails, and then he puts it in Google Translate so he can read it.
Oh my gosh.
This is somebody, if you're 94, it's probably not inconceivable, especially if you grew up in this area, which like Lansdale and all that was a little bit more rural at the time. It's not inconceivable. You went somewhere in like a wagon pulled by a horse to pick something up. And now here you are figuring out how to sending email and using Google Translate.
Yeah, that's what I think about. Like my grandmother, she was born in 1921, and the things that she had seen. I mean, she's 99. The technological advances that she has seen in her life, and the people of that generation, like we will never be able to understand. Going from, typewriter. Yeah. Not everybody has a car. Like that era, the Great Depression, and then let alone TV, black and white TV, color TV. And now we're talking about streaming everything and the fact that we get to do this, like I'm literally using a website to have a conversation with somebody, and not only that, but record it, and it's recording the video and the audio, and it's in real time. It's just unbelievable. And we,
the changes that they've seen in their lives are just phenomenal.
Yeah. And it's great to hear them. Yeah. That's what I was saying. It's great to hear their perspective on it, because it's like like you had said, it's like they've seen it all, like they're just kind of like, oh yeah. I feel like nowadays, like kids are like, what? This phone doesn't have a touch screen. What? Yeah,
they're like, what?
I don't understand. Literally, and I'm becoming that person that's like, well, Back in my
Oh.
day, like we had VHS, or whatever. Like those don't exist anymore. So, yeah, that's.
I have reached the stage of existence where I can barely turn on my television.
Oh
So
my gosh.
it runs through the PS4 or whatever, and it's like everything that I can do to remember how to turn it on. So
Yeah, like you think it would get a lot easier, but it actually gets more
it does.
complicated, which is funny. Unless you have like the Alexa, turn on the TV or whatever.
I know.
We're getting there though. It's crazy.
I'm tempted.
Yeah. I wish we could change Alexa to the term Big Brother and then just say, no, I'm just kidding.
Well, then I would be
Brother,
accurate.
can you? I saw a funny meme that was like, everybody in the 80s was concerned about Big Brother. Now we're like, Big Brother, how do you make spaghetti? It's funny.
It's
Anyway.
100% true.
So transitioning, sorry, that was a long pause.
That's good.
Transitioning, at what point did you decide to start to think about getting involved in the borough? And obviously you lived here, but when was it? Because that's something that I always find really interesting is people who go from just being citizens of an area and then saying like, I want to be a part of the movement, or I want to be somebody who is contributing, not just receiving. If you could talk us through that thought process and the time frame of that from where you were, obviously starting this new career. Obviously it was a few years after, but you can share a little bit.
So I actually owe, I think, almost all of this to my oldest son, Jake. He was in 10th grade at SPRINGFORD, and in his honors government class, they had a requirement that you had to go and sit in on some type of municipal meeting. And he was not terribly excited about that assignment, as you can imagine. And so I'm like, look, so I went on the web, I went on the website, I think I went online and looked up to see where the meetings were and when they had them and all this stuff. And literally it's 1 block from our house.
Yeah.
Because we're down on 2nd Avenue. So it's like, we're like, wait a minute, it's right there.
Yeah. So
I'm like, all right, we're going to go to this meeting. So we went to this meeting, and this would have been probably in 2012, 2013. And so we went, is that right? Can that be right? That seems so long ago. I don't know. So, but we went in, and the borough meeting hall at that time, it was straight out of maybe the early 80s.
Oh, no.
So it's everything was paneled still. There was paneling on all the walls, some very old looking chairs, some strange looking carpet. And so we go and sit down, and there's probably 3 other people in the audience. And then there's the Borough Council. And as I'm sitting here waiting for this meeting to start, I have to confess, it was the first municipal meeting that I had ever been to. So I had no idea what to expect.
Right.
And it was over in probably 15 minutes. They did not really seem to talk about anything as far as I could tell. Nobody asked any questions. And I kid you not, they were all over 70, which, hey, you know that I love my seniors.
Yeah, right.
But they were all over 70. And one person, I swear, fell asleep during the meeting. Like one of the people on council. And so I kind of walked away from that meeting thinking, wow, that's not really a high bar.
Yeah.
I think that anybody could do that. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Wonder what you have to do to get involved, like that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And so later then, so after that next election, they had some more Democrats who were coming on the council, and they had a couple of people who had moved out of the borough after the election, but before they took office, because they had lived in apartments and lost their leases or whatever and had to move. So they put an advertisement in the paper to basically say, is anybody interested in being on Borough Council? If so, submit your resume. So I said, well, what do I have to lose? I could try it.
Yeah.
So plus I would be a female person on council, because at the time everybody on council was male.
Okay.
So I thought, I'm going to do it. So I filled out an application. I sent in my resume, and I got called in to interview, and it was with Anil Dam and Tom Weichel. And basically we had a great conversation, and they were sharing a little bit about their vision for the borough. and what they were hoping would happen in the next couple of years. And I think that from their perspective, because of my like sales background and marketing background and communications background, they saw that that was something that could be valuable as we're trying to explain and get people in the borough excited about what the vision is for the future. I think that they saw that that was something that could add value to what was being offered by the people on Burrow. So they offered it to me, and I was like, yeah, heck yeah, I'll do it. So, and it's been really interesting. So I've enjoyed it a lot.
So initially, your entrance on Borough Council, did you not have to run for like election or like?
So
like that's
okay.
interesting.
Listen, I just want to say I paid for that.
Yeah.
Not like hush hush money, but like, I didn't have to run the first time, but boy, did I have to run after that.
Yeah.
So
what year did you start on Borough Council? Sorry.
You know what? I think it was 2016. So, but I have to check that to make sure. So we'll do the math and see if it adds up.
So you were saying like, so people had run and then those people had to be replaced.
Yes.
Unexpectedly or whatever. Okay. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So when you get appointed to a council position, and that's been one of the most interesting things that I've learned throughout all of this, is that the rules for boroughs may be different than the rules for townships.
Yeah.
So they've got different regulations. So all of this only applies to boroughs.
Yeah.
But from a borough perspective, if you are appointed, then you have to run immediately for the next election. So I was appointed in the end of January, and then I had to run for that fall election. Okay. And so when I made that fall election, I think basically I got appointed to the remainder of a term kind of thing. Yeah. So then I had to run the next year again.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you mean.
And then I got elected to the 2-year term then. So then I had to run again after 2 years. So last year I finally got elected to a 4-year term. So now I don't have to run for at least a little while again, which is great.
So you're an old pro when it comes to running for office.
Wow.
Getting the word out and everything.
That's right.
Yeah.
And actually it's really fun. I mean, I gotta be honest. So I like it.
That's good.
And we just do a lot of door knocking. We go around and we talk to people. And talk to them about, most people will actually open the door, which I guess is a little bit surprising, but they really will. And so we just go around and talk to them and see what their concerns are and let them know what we're trying to do the borough. And frankly, most everyone we talk to is really nice. So I enjoy it.
It's been incredible being, a transplant and then coming here in 2017. Not knowing a soul. And, I literally, like, we settled on our house May 8th, 2017. I started a page called Discover Springford in July. And then I got a table at the community day. And then the next day was the first episode of Discover Springford. So in less than 4 months, I was now like this guy who was trying to get part of the town and everything. And that was kind of what I wanted. I had the idea even before we moved, because I was like, wherever we end up, like, I want to dive in, I don't want to be just like this like outsider and stuff. And I'm not as involved, even though I do this stuff, I'm not as involved as I would love to be, just because of being a performer and the schedule of that.
Yep.
I can't go to Borough Council meetings. I can't go to mixers and things that I personally would love to be able to do. Maybe when I decide to hang up my I don't dance, but my dancing, then I'll be able to settle down and get a little bit more plugged into the actual nitty gritty of what things are happening. But as much as I can do to highlight what's happening, that's kind of where I've found my niche.
Well, and I think that's one of for me, the nicest things about Royersford is that it is a great size from the perspective of, it's large enough that you do have a variety of people here. Like the town that I grew up in had 800 people.
Oh, wow.
So there were 76 people in my graduating class. So like that's small. You know everybody, you know everything about them. There's not much new to discover.
Yeah, right.
But here it's big enough that there are new people to meet, but it's small enough that if you do want to get involved, you really can make a difference.
Sure.
And you can get to know the the people that you need to know in town in order to understand what's happening. And that, I think, is just a really unique feature of Royersford, and it being like just the right size.
Yeah, I agree. And that's everybody I've met, with between you, Joe Moskal, Matt Stamen, Anil, Jenna, obviously, Amy, like just everybody I've met, and I'm forgetting people, I apologize, but you're the ones that I've actually had conversations with, perhaps maybe even not you until now, but I feel like I know you guys in more than maybe I actually do, just because I'm like watching from the sidelines, like, hey, dude, we're all in this together, kind of thing, And I get my basketball and we do our High School Musical dance. But yeah, like that's really cool. So the fact that you had to run several times and you're getting out there and your people are learning your face and learning what you're all about. Do you have a specific role on Borough Council in terms of what committees you're on and things like that?
I have an official role and an unofficial role.
Okay.
So my official roles, I am on the personnel committee and also on the finance committee. And I was on the parking study committee that we finished up not too long ago, which was very fun. Everyone loves to talk about parking.
That's right.
So I was on the
especially on Facebook.
I know. We spent a lot of mornings counting the number of empty spots in all of the lots on town to understand what the actual parking needs were. So that was, the glamorous life of politics. We were doing it in January, and it's freezing.
You're just walking the street.
Walking the street, counting empty parking spots. So, and frankly, there were always empty parking spots, even in the big lot. So those are my official roles really on council, and I'm president pro tem, I think. So if Anil and Matt get run over by the bus, I'm the person who has to run the next meeting. So
I see.
That's my other role.
So you're like the Secretary of State, essentially. No.
I'm like Anil, Matt, be careful. Do not get hit by a bus. But my unofficial role on council is that I am the person who always is asking questions. Okay. So I'm nosy and I want to know stuff. And so whenever anybody is presenting or we have borough business to talk about or anything like that, I'm always the one who's like, okay, wait, I've got questions and here are the things that I want to know. So, and sometimes people, and we don't have a lot of people who are, who attend borough council meetings in public, but we do have some. And so people will come up to me afterwards and say, oh, those were good questions. So I feel like, all right, I'm doing my job. I'm asking questions.
Yeah, because I'm sure that, there's people out there that either don't have the confidence to ask, don't know how to articulate what they're thinking. And then if you ask a question and it hits home with them, they're like, oh, good, I get the answer that I want. And I don't have to be the one that is like holding things up or whatever, that is a necessary thing. I'm very inquisitive myself. And my wife often makes fun of me because I would watch movies. While watching the movie, I'd be on Wikipedia reading about the production history of the movie because I need to know. I absolutely need to know that the role was originally offered to Tom Cruise, but then it went to Robert. I need to know all that stuff, even though it's completely. Listen, I need the information to make the right decision. So
absolutely, and then you feel like you know a little bit more, and you're like an insider when you have all that information. So you absolutely want to know that.
Well, it's funny because I'm the kind of person that I need to know. I want to know the why and the how, not just the what. And so if someone, I'm the worst. I don't know how to say this the right way, but if you want somebody to come in and shake things up, I'm your guy.
Okay.
But I'm not the guy that if you want just to come in and transition smoothly, I'm not that guy because I am the guy that I ask, why do we do this? And if no one can articulate a reason why it's done that way, then we're changing how it's done. I'm that guy. I always say, if the answer is because it's always been done that way, then that means that it's time to change the way it's done.
Yes.
Originally, there was a reason, but no one's left that can articulate that reason. So now we need to reevaluate. That's the way I handle things. So I'm a guy. I'm a good starter. I'm a good guy who whatever stirs the pot. But if you want somebody that's going to be the level-headed, just go with the flow kind of guy, that's not who I am. Which is why I do a one-man operation because depending on the situation, I don't play well with others. Not because I am antagonistic or confrontational, but just because usually when I hand something off to somebody else, they drop the ball, and I just don't trust them to do it the way I want it done.
Yeah, there's a word for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I'm working on it.
Well, and you've got to have those types of people, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, nothing ever gets done, and it
Right.
all stays the same. So we all have a role to play.
That's
how I
right.
like to think about
Right.
it.
So I appreciate your diligence in asking questions so that everybody gets to the same solution. Because when you talk about that stuff, it gets everybody on the same page, I think.
Well, and I still vividly remember like that first time I was sitting in the audience in there and thinking, what is going on here? What are they doing? I wish I knew more. And
Right.
you don't want to, it's a public meeting. It's like
Right.
government. You don't think you should ask any questions. So I still kind of have that feeling. So I think, all right, I'm going to ask questions because probably people are interested and just don't want to raise their hand. So.
Yeah, and the public probably doesn't know if it's official business or not if you're on the council and you're bringing it up, whereas they're like, oh, I'm limited to 2 minutes or whatever the bylaws say. Like there's like 3 minutes, and then it has, I don't know if they have to be written in advance or anything like that. I know some organizations are like, I know with like home ownership associations, they have rules and stuff about you got to submit the questions ahead of time. But, I don't know how Borough Council necessarily.
We don't do that.
Yeah, that's good.
You can ask what you want.
That's good.
Got 3 minutes. Spit it out.
I'm sure you have people that kind of have their hobby horse that come, or I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but you don't have to mention people, but sometimes I would think that you get, I don't know if you watch Parks and Recreation. That's kind of where I'm going. When they have those forums and stuff, does it mirror that at all sometimes?
It's not nearly that.
Well, obviously, yeah, that's a comedy. So, but I was like, these people seem so realistic in this show that this must have actually happened in some government somewhere, and that's where they're drawing the inspiration from.
I am sure. Most everybody who comes to council, honestly, is really respectful and understands that, we're not politicians. We're not, crazy career politicians. We're just people who are basically volunteering our time at night to try and get stuff done. And so they tend to, for the most part, be pretty nice and understanding of what we can and cannot do. So we spend a fair amount of time talking. Joe Moskal, he ends up with all of the handicap parking spot requests. So.
Okay. He's on the emergency management, right? Yeah.
Yeah. We're like, oh, you're the parking spot guy, right? So he gets a lot of those types of requests. And then we talk a lot about parking. Like that's a hot button item for people. Yeah. Everyone, of course, always wants to know, why can't we park on Main Street after, why isn't there overnight parking on Main Street?
Yeah, right.
And of course, all the businesses say, don't you dare put overnight parking on Main Street. Then there won't be any place to park. So those are the kind of things that we deal with a lot. We've been doing more lately with, of course, we have development and things actually happening in town. So that's been exciting to see some of the new ideas and plans that are coming forth. And then, of course, the other stuff that we're working on is the linear park along the riverfront and connecting that hopefully to the Schuylkill River Trail over on the Chester County side. So that will be wonderful. And we're getting closer to getting that to happen.
Is that on the side, I guess the south side, or are you talking about the development that's going to be happening with like Lewis Environmental and things like that?
So we're developing, if you're down by the river right now on the side where all the buildings actually and houses actually are. Yeah. So there's that walking path down there, right? So
where the kayak dock is and stuff. Yeah.
That's exactly right. So we're basically have plans to extend that walking path the whole distance of the borough on the riverfront. So, I mean, not that that's a huge distance, but it will go from one side of Royersford to the other. So when they, the plans as we're seeing them now coming from the developer are showing that when they look to develop the other side of the riverfront, that also will have a path. And then the path will connect to the old abandoned trestle. Oh, yeah. It goes over the river. And then once that happens, you can go over to the trail over there, the Schuylkill River Trail, basically, and take that all the way that it goes. And you can
Yeah.
ride that. I mean, that thing goes to Phoenixville right now,
Yeah.
and down into Valley Forge, and then you can pick up down there and bike into the city.
That's
So
so
if
cool.
you really, I mean, I know, isn't it great?
It's funny
I
is
just
that
think it's amazing.
this whole thing of us, social distancing and whatnot. I've done more walking within safe distance, obviously.
Of course.
And I'm not a runner because I have a torn meniscus, so that's a whole
Oh,
other thing. So I'm not running and having to, keep even further distance. I forget what the rules are, like 30 feet or something. But
I think I saw 15.
yeah, 15 feet. Okay, well, yeah, I don't have a runner's body. I'll just leave it at that. But we walked. My kids took our bikes. We walked all the way down, and they just kept going, and they got in trouble because they were well out of our sight for a very long time. But they ended up or we got to East Coventry or East Pikeland, whatever it is that's down towards Phoenixville.
Yeah.
We were all the way down there, and then another day we went all the way up to Pentonhurst. So it's crazy. Like I had no idea that it went as far as it did. And it's kind of, the silver lining of everything that's going on right now is that it's caused me to explore and do things that I didn't have time to do otherwise. So that's been kind of cool. But that's really exciting to know that and Mark Schumacher is actually, I'm interviewing him tomorrow.
Cool.
So we'll be talking a little bit about Save the Trestle and stuff because he was on the steering committee for that.
Yep.
And he's involved in a couple in Birdie's Kitchen, which is the new place in Spring City. So we'll be talking about that as well. So yeah, it's really cool. That's why I wanted to kind of get some of this various information out to the people in a different format, because I think it's helpful for people to be able to listen, while they're driving or whatever. And the podcast is a good format for that, as opposed to they might not see the post on Facebook, or they might not, go onto the websites and see what's going on. So that's really exciting. So obviously there's a lot going on in terms of, we talked to Brad Sinrod in the last episode, in terms of the Main Street revitalization efforts, and then the waterfront stuff, and are those, I would say, are those the two big focuses of Borough Council at this point? Is that continued revitalization?
Yeah, I would say I would agree with that continued revitalization really is our focus, and I think part of the reason that's why this shutdown for coronavirus is so disappointing is it really feels like we were on the cusp of some actual momentum.
Yeah.
This type of thing, you work a little bit more, you get another approval, this happens, happens, and it's baby steps. And then all of a sudden you hit that point where the snowball is rolling down the hill by itself, and and things are actually happening. And so it really did feel like we were just at that point. And now here we are, everybody's in their houses quarantining, which of course we have to do.
Right.
But hopefully it won't be too long, and we can kind of get back to work. So, because there are some fun things that we're planning, and the other local businesses in town are planning, and we're super excited about that. So
yeah, super. I'm really excited just to be able to. We've walked up and down. I live on Pine Street, but we walk up to Main Street almost every night just because we're like, what else are we going to do? So my kids get the bikes, and my wife and I, we go for walks, and it's like either right before dinner or after dinner, we'll go for a walk depending on the weather and that kind of thing. And it's just, I'm like, like right now, like this stuff is like all just about to happen. And it's one of the reasons why we moved here, because we wanted to be somewhere that hadn't quite exploded, but we could be a part of it when it did, and that's why I'm super excited. Why I wanted to start the show was to just kind of be able to show off how great this place is and how it's continuing to grow. So I just want to thank you for being that question asker and doing the things that you're doing and volunteering your time, because it's not an easy thing, especially when it's all that. It's a lot of applications and paperwork and stuff that's not glamorous. Counting parking spaces, like you said, and a lot of people want to talk about change, but they don't actually want to put in. They don't want to sacrifice the man hours and the time, and the blood, sweat, and tears to make change. So I just want to say thank you for offering to do that.
Well, I'm totally excited to do it. And I think that's one of the things that really makes Royersford special, is that there are a lot of people who are willing to do it, to put the work in. We, as personnel committee, one of the things that's my responsibility to do as the chair of that is that when we have a vacancy on one of our committees, we have to go out and find somebody who's willing to fill that vacancy. And in the beginning, we would be, twisting people's arms and out there saying, oh my gosh, all right, does anybody know anybody? Who could we possibly get to fill this role? And now we put a post on Facebook and we'll have, multiple people. We have to interview and figure out who's going to be best for this because we have so many people that are interested in helping.
That's
and
incredible.
That type of community spirit, I think, is fantastic. Parks and Rec, they are working so hard. That's another thing that's so disappointing is that they had so many great things lined up for Victory Park, and they've been working really hard to get that going. Parks on Tap. No, Trails on Tap. I'm gonna say it wrong. Whatever.
I think Trails on Tap sounds right. I didn't get to go, but I think that's right.
They were starting out their season at our riverfront. And basically they were going to do us and I think maybe Valley Forge or something like that. And that was it this summer.
Oh, wow.
Because we had such a strong turnout last summer, even though it was 100 degrees.
Yeah, it was so hot.
It was so
I remember being I can't believe this is the weekend. It's so nobody wants to be outside right now.
But we had such good turnout that they wanted to come back and they were giving us 2 weeks this summer.
Oh,
so
wow.
People are interested, people are engaged. Riverfront people were bringing down canoes and kayaks and teaching people how to kayak and how to get involved on the river. We did that for the first time last year, and it is awesome. I had never been kayaking before.
Oh, that's so cool.
For Christmas, we bought kayaks, and it is great.
Awesome.
No, wait, it must not have been Christmas, but whatever. We have kayaks. It is wonderful. So
that's exciting. I might have to look into investing in some kayaks for the family.
They're not that expensive.
It's right there. Yeah.
It's right there. We saw a bald eagle when we were on the river.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I said. My wife said, she's like, they should have the ability to rent kayaks right here because it's the dock's right there. I don't know, obviously the logistics of doing that kind of thing, but
well, Joe Moskell has a million jobs and a million businesses, and we keep telling him that's the next one that he needs to do.
Needs to open kayak rental. Kayak rental. Well, if I never go back to working as an actor, because right now I'm not, so and then maybe I'll start that business. I already got the audience. I got the SPRINGFORD audience. I think I could get some people to come. So I don't know anything about kayaking or renting them, but I could read it up on it.
Listen, if I can figure out how to kayak, anybody can figure out how to kayak.
Right.
It's not hard.
That's great. Well, Alex, thank you so much. This has been a blast. And I appreciate you sharing your story for everybody to know and get to know the people that are behind the scenes doing the work of making Royersford what it can be in the SPRINGFORD area as a whole. So if there's any websites or any information that you want to direct people to, now would be the time to do it. If they want to know more information about the borough or about the company that you work for.
So if they want to know more about, I will say for a quick retirement living pitch, that people do have a lot of questions. And so if you have questions about just where do I even start or what do I need to do, our website is livingbranches.org, and we're real low key. We don't get commissions. So we're there to educate people, not to try to sell them a product. So people can always email us through that, and we're happy to help. For the borough, the best places for borough information, the borough has a website, of course, if you just look up Royersford Borough, we're on there. And then also our Facebook page, the Royersford Borough Facebook page. Anil especially is really good about keeping that thing. Anil and Matt keep it up to date. Right. And they're always posting different events and making sure everybody's aware of what's going on in town. And then, of course, you also have to follow Mayor Jenna.
Of course, yes.
Really, really, really good at letting people know what's happening in town, how they can get involved, where their voice needs to be heard, and what they can do to make a difference. So she's the other one that's really important to follow. Yep,
definitely. Entertaining as well. And
yeah, absolutely. Kids, so. And she has kids. That's exactly right. If you're tired of bad news, go visit Jenna's pages, Facebook and Instagram, because she's got adorable pictures of her kids, and it will make you feel better.
That's right. And we've seen each other across the street as we've been walking a couple times, keeping that we stay on opposite sides of the road and we wave. But
that's right. You just
wave. We live around the corner from each other, so we see each other quite a lot, actually. But well, Alex, thank you so much. I hope you have a great night, and I'll be praying that you stay safe, obviously, in the line of work you do. It's really
Thanks.
important, and you guys are on the front lines essentially. So we'll be praying for
Yep.
you, and thank you. And again, thank you for what you do in Royersford, because we all benefit from it as Royersford Borough residents. So thank you.
Oh,
And thank you all for tuning into
my
this
pleasure.
episode.
Thank you.
Sorry, there was a little delay there. I apologize. You froze up for a second, and I started talking, and then it caught up. But anyway, thank you all for watching or listening on the podcast. We really appreciate it. Come back next time. But until then, get online and discover what makes the Springford area a great place to live, work, eat, and explore.